As the season winds down for the Outsiders Racing League, while typically in most oval series, or oval dominant series I should say, they head to pretty much ovals for the rest of the season. For the penultimate race, we're heading to a road course. That's right, we're at the Indianapolis road course, which put on a fantastic show in the Outsiders Racing League race that they had here a year ago. We're here back and looking forward to some more action. My name is Finny DeCuna here, Justin Krasneski here, and we're looking forward to a really good race. There's nothing that truly beats stock cars on road courses. Yeah, Justin, I think we're looking forward to a pretty good show, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a good mix. Obviously, this isn't a track that stock cars usually visited until the last couple of weeks due to the pandemic, having to adjust the schedule. Obviously, the Xfinity Series was here a couple of weeks ago, but I'm curious to see how this plays out. It's a nice mix of slow to corners that you might find at a place like Sonoma and some faster ones like Watkins Glen. So I'm curious if the same guys we saw run up front at like Mid-Ohio are going to be strong here tonight.
Absolutely, and you kind of expect to see something like that, especially also the guys that ran at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, to expect to see guys up near the front, namely so Conor Horn in the 3 car, currently not out on the track at the moment. We're looking at Jeremy Miller and a few others that are coming around to start the laps. There's Caleb Weekly as well. But looking at the season, the rest of the season, who are we looking at to, I guess, dominate the race? And I want you to pick someone besides Conor Horn.
I was gonna say it's easy to pick Conor Horn because he's in a great spot points wise, and obviously he's a great oval racer as well as road racer. So it'd be easy to pick him. But I'm actually gonna go back to Jeff Wright. He's been on fire the last couple of weeks and a great road racer, but definitely a little bit of an underrated guy that might fly under the radar. But I think he's gonna surprise tonight and challenge for the win.
You actually see him waiting on the track. He's actually waiting, I guess, for the track to cool down a little bit more. There, you see him finally rolling back onto begin the run up to Indianapolis turn 1, and to start his lap, obviously running in the reverse direction here down the front straightaway. And Jeffrey, he's been doing pretty good, especially late. Won the last 2 races and has been on a bit of a hot streak himself, and was second fastest in practice. Now you're probably wondering, well, who was first fastest in practice? It wasn't Conor Horn, it was actually AJ Stravato that held the fastest time in practice. So he's actually coming out of the final corner to start his run. And really, the Dark Smoke guys in general have been on a roll. They've been won, I think, the last 4 or 5 races amongst their team, and even finished in the top 2 of the last 4 races with that team. So they've been really strong. I think definitely one of the three of those cars out of that stable can have a really good shot of winning the races. As I say that, Stravato, he actually spins out in turn 1.
Yeah, I think he was in a little bit too deep and just bailed on if that was his second lap. Obviously, it didn't matter. Yeah, but I think if he got his first lap in, and obviously it was a 1:27.89, but he must have just bailed if he was a little bit too deep for turn 1.
Yeah, actually, did. Yeah, so yeah, that was his that was his first lap that he completed, starting a second. So yeah, I guess felt it was good enough. We'll see if it stands. Bryce Calusa wasn't looking too fast in practice. I was a bit concerned because he was one of those drivers we were talking about. Canadian Tire Motorsports Park was finding up with Conor Horn for a majority of the race. Wasn't able to seal the deal, but still finish up in second. And also looking to be starting on pole here if things remain. Still waiting for Conor. I don't think he's gotten out on track yet. No, he's still waiting in the pits.
Yeah, for the most part, actually, everybody's slowed down at least a little bit. A couple of guys, Clifton Cockrell picked up, but Bryce Calusa is the only one that ran up in the top 5 in the practice times that basically ran the same time in qualifying. So it looks like the track may have gotten a little bit hotter, a little bit slipperier, and we'll see if guys like Jeff Wright and Conor Horn can find a little bit more time from where they were at in practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we see Jeff Wright coming on back to the front straightaway here, you see him actually lifting off as he was coming back onto the actual oval surface. And again, that is kind of showing how hot it is. Once he completes the lap, we'll take a look at the weather, because it was pretty slick out there in practice. I imagine might have gotten even more hot in qualifying. 125.4 for Jeff Wright, and that's going to put him... actually, that wasn't a clean lap, so it's not going to put him anywhere.
Yeah, that was a fantastic lap, but he must have slid through a corner on the first half of the course or something that enabled him to pick up a little bit, because that was far and away faster than everybody else's run so far.
Yeah, looking at the track time too, 102 degrees on the track for the driver, 68 in the air. So the air is not too bad. It's really obviously the track you gotta be worried about. Over 100 degrees, it's always not terribly good, especially considering how flat the corners are. Especially you see the hairpin, a lot of slow and snaily corners. So just as a driver, what do you have to do to kind of mitigate that?
Well, you can do a little bit of different things. You can obviously be a little bit softer on your gas pedal, especially if you're using first gear, or if you prefer and you're okay with potentially losing a little bit of time on corner exit, you can just leave it in second gear through these really slow corners and roll through there, and the natural low RPM will help you. But I think that that last corner with the banking going the opposite way of what we're used to, if you do have worn rear tires and you're burning them up a little bit, that's definitely where it's going to show, and we might have some crashes coming to the start-finish line.
Yeah, and I think the crash is also going to be a big thing to watch, especially in the opening few laps. It's going to be pretty, well, combined with the cold tires and a hot surface, that's almost a recipe for disaster considering how tight the first few turns are on this track. These guys have been doing a pretty good job of giving each other room, but again, can't always assume that here as Jeff Wright comes flying out of oval turn 1. And back across the line, we'll see if this lap is going to be clean, and we'll count across the line, 127.4. Not as fast as the first lap, but is clean enough to put him in third position.
Definitely a solid lap. I think he'll be fairly happy with that. Martin Sproul currently the quickest, and he's kind of hoping that Martin gets a good start and can launch off, and he can follow him through the first couple corners, I think.
Yeah, Martin Sprout too. We've been talking about him all season. Just the fact that, really, the fact that we haven't really been talking a whole lot about him, at least up near the front of the field, which is where we kind of expect to see him for a long time. Just quite hasn't had the pace, and was currently sitting on pole, which, from the looks of it, might stand. We got Alex Bell rolling out on track, and notably Conor Horn. He's not gotten out on track, and I think that's pretty much signaling that he's going to start from the back. Do you think this is a good decision for him to start in the back, or do you think this is kind of bad and might get him involved in a wreck?
I guess it kind of depends. I mean, he's at the point right now, like I said, where he can kind of play the cards the way he wants to. He's got the point buffer. He's got, obviously, the speed every week to be able to do what he wants. And if he feels like it's safer out back and that he can certainly drive up into the single-digit positions here before the first pit stop, or maybe the only pit stop, then I guess that's a good call from him if he doesn't like the way it would look starting on row 2, 3, or 4.
And with Alex Bell coming across the line, he's going to come across in 10th. Not really good enough to get near the front, but he's going to pretty much be midfield. And for the most part, I think that's going to wrap up for our qualifiers. Don't really see anyone rolling out on the track. But again, this is the Outsiders Racing League, the penultimate round of the season, just about a round up championship season. It's been pretty good for these drivers, and you know, Justin, any really thought? I know you've been kind of watching. In fact, you actually started the season off. Do you think, especially looking at the points, because AJ Serrato, he's only 14 points back. That's not terrible. It's not really good either. Do you think he has a shot within these last two races to try to get Conor Horn?
Well, I think tonight's going to be a little bit of a struggle in that regard. Obviously, he was quickest in practice, but he's gonna have to finish in the top 3 to have a shot to gain hopefully 3, 4, 5 points going into next week. Next week is a 1 mile oval. Obviously, a lot can happen, but this week with less than 20 cars showing up, unfortunately, he's gonna have minimal gains if at all. So he's just gonna have to try to capitalize a little bit and hope for a little bit of luck next week.
Absolutely, and qualifying just about to be complete. Here we're going to tick over into the race session. It's going to be 45 laps on the board for these drivers to take to Indianapolis. And again, it's going to be a pretty long race, I think, for some of them. You got to keep yourself focused. It's not a particularly easy road course. In fact, I would say it's decent. It's it's a decent road course in IndyCar. Not too terribly much of a challenge. It's really just coming out the corners that are a problem. But the stock cars, it's a whole different ball game, I think, for a lot of these guys. And gonna get ready to go down to the grid here as got guys gridding on the front straightaway. So get started with your starting lineup. On the front row is gonna be Martin Sproul in the 19. Great qualifying effort from him. Next is gonna be Bryce Calusa lined up into the 20 car in second. Moving on back to row number 2, it's gonna be Jeff Wright lined up in third. Adam Cabot lined up in the 77 in fourth. AJ Serrato in 5th in the 33. Elliott Butler lined up in 6th next to him. I haven't really talked a whole lot about Elliott, but going to start pretty solidly inside the top 10. Clifton Cockrell in 16th in the 16 car in 7th place. Casey Licotis in 8th in the 50. Bailey Turner in 9th, and Alex Bell going to round out your top 10. Back in 11th, we got Brandon Gagnon lined up in 11th, Jeremy Miller in 12th. Michael Sturgill going to be lined up in 13th and 90. Brian Chambliss in 14th in the 9 car. Caleb Wakely in 15th. Conor Horn going to line up all the way back in 16th. Going to be interesting to see him climb up through the order. Steve Turner will be starting back in 17th. Brandon Bowers going to be lined up in the 31 in 18th place. David Mott Jr. going to be lining up in 19th, and Yusuf Ghali back in 20th. And the interesting note, actually, Justin, if you want to go ahead and say why Yusuf isn't here.
Yeah, he just got a brand new wheel. I think it's a TS300, and wanted to test it out tonight, but obviously had some sort of minor malfunction with it. So I talked to him earlier, and he will not be back for the race.
Yeah, which is really unfortunate. We were talking about Yusuf too. Unfortunately, not in a particularly good way in the last few races, because he was looking really strong. In fact, really was looking like the guy that was able to take it to Conor Horn for the championship. And unfortunately, the last half of the season just really hasn't been connecting for the 54. And then obviously, this is not really going to add to that. But he was already kind of out of the championship picture anyway, so I think he's going to take the week off. Hopefully, he can get his wheel fixed. We can see him back next week and then also next season. But as the field,
definitely. Go ahead.
Oh no, you can continue.
I was just gonna say he started off the season so well. It's really a disappointment that he's gonna miss this race, and if he doesn't get things sorted out for the next race. Obviously, he won earlier in the season at Watkins Glen, and just a little bit of a tie-in note, Martin Sproul really ran behind both of them at Watkins Glen. He was the only guy that could really challenge Yusuf at Watkins Glen for the most part, other than fuel strategy. So we might see Martin drive away from these guys, and who knows, Conor Horn might not even be able to get up to some of these front guys if they're able to run away.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can see some track facts about Indianapolis. Structured all the way back in 1909, obviously paved with a bunch of bricks going around the entire track until they finally paved it with asphalt. Indianapolis, Indiana, 2.4 million people in the town, and the speedway itself holding 250,000 people on race day for the Indianapolis 500. You can see for the road course at least 13 turns, 2.6 miles, and you can see then again can't read that. The text is really small on the screen I'm looking at. Oh, interesting. Okay, the design of the track. That's an interesting fact that Cal put in there, that it had a completely different design. I'm looking at a much smaller monitor screen compared to what I'm actually have the iRacing thrown up on, so I was kind of squinting like an old man trying to read it. But you actually see also, interesting note before we go green here, the track temp gone up to 105. And so these guys looking at dealing with some pretty slippery conditions. Hopefully they'll be able to manage it. Do you think we might see a wreck down at Turon, or do you think these guys will be skilled enough to handle it?
I think that the front guys will all get through clean. I'm sure they'll give plenty of space. The problem is when you get back 5, 6, 7 rows back to the second half of the field, and even if guys are trying to be cautious, a surprise brake check or having to swerve a little bit to miss somebody, that can lead to disaster and a wheel lock up, and we might lose 4 cars. I've seen that here before, so we'll just have to wait and see a little bit.
Indeed, we will. We won't have to wait too long, as the pace car going to make a turn onto pit road here as the field comes through oval turn 1. And we'll get ready to start again. 45 laps here in Indianapolis road course for the penultimate round. The Outsiders Racing League 2020 beat season. Pace car off onto pit road. Field in control of Martin Sproul. Waiting for the signal. And there we go. Green flag here at Indianapolis.
Bailey Turner jumped out of the line earlier, it looks like, back in about row 5. He's going to look to go 3 wide if he can make a nice hole there.
Yeah, I'm going to try to throw it up the inside. Hopefully he can make it stick. Here's the field slowing down for the turn 3 wide into turn 1. Not a particularly good scenario, but they're able to make it work, and Turner able to gain quite a few positions. You see the field mostly already single file out near the front. But Elliot Butler not a particularly good start as he's fighting with his teammate Bailey Turner, and Turner will get on by. Whoa! Edu Servato really sideways trying to get back on the gas. Is going to continue on. Oh, still fighting the car. Here comes Bailey Turner just inside. And still side by side here as they come on to the back straightaway. And you can see everyone as they're trying to get on the gas loose and sideways.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fight all night, definitely, especially after these pit stops in the start. It's gonna be a balancing act between getting heat in the tires and getting them overheated, where you're gonna burn them off right away. Definitely a tricky thing to do. You know, you're gonna have a balance of slow corners, trying to keep the front tires on it, and then exiting, trying to keep the rear tires on it for, you know, probably close to 25 laps.
Looking out ahead, it's a pretty close race near the front. Martin Sprout trying to drive away from Jeff Wright, and then also Bryce Calusa in behind as well. I'm kind of interested in seeing, you know, obviously we're so used to Conor Horn dominating the schedule. Be interesting to see it because we don't entirely know if he'll be able to get back up here in time, because a lot of the other guys in the front pretty fast themselves as Martin Sprout comes across the line to complete lap number 1.
I think we can bet on Conor Horn ending up probably, you know, 5th to 7th shortly here, but obviously, like you said, as Martin missed turn 1 big time there, he's going to lose the lead.
And again, you can't afford to make mistakes like that, especially considering the competition near the front so high. Yeah, just missed the braking zone. That's a tough thing to do because obviously it's the first time they're coming down there at full speed. And I think just in the race at least, and unfortunately miscalculated, went wide, so he's going to have to recuperate back from 3rd place.
Yeah, he somewhat got away with it, though. It would be really easy to, you know, slide through and go through the grass, get a slowdown penalty, or even spin out with the grass. But he got away with it, and he's back in 3rd. I'm sure he'll charge back.
And with that mistake, Wright, he's got to deal with now Bryce Calusa in behind in the 20 car. And again, Bryce ran really well at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. In fact, finished in 2nd place. As Jeff Wright goes really wide, he's going to come sliding, and around he goes in front of the field. And a big mistake from the 48 is going to give pretty much hand over the lead to Bryce Calusa. Wow.
Yep, he's going to go all the way back, probably outside the top 10 before he gets back.
Oh, and more carnage as well as Jeremy Miller goes wide. Uh-oh, and Conor Horn all the way back, quite a ways back in 15th. Not sure how he ended up there. Or sorry, he's all the way back 17 seconds, what I meant to say.
Yeah, we talked about the start. It's really easy to lose a little bit of time. He could have had a spin or just a little bit of a slide off track, and you know, it's easy to lose 5-6 seconds. But Jeff Wright, very uncharacteristic mistake after he's been on fire the last couple weeks.
And you can see right there, just spun in front of the field. Everyone was able to hopefully sneak on by. I think Jeremy Miller got caught up in something else, and he's gonna come sliding across the screen right there. I think maybe had some contact with Brandon Gagnon. 83 was another car to go around. Race already off to a pretty interesting start, to say the least. And with that, Bryce Calusa will be leading this race, followed by Martin Sprout in 2nd. Adam Cabot in the 77 in 3rd, with Sprout, who gets pretty loose into the hairpin.
I'm sure Bryce is enjoying it. He, you know, slid into 3rd in the first couple laps, and the first 15 or 20 corners of the race, he's got 2 freebies, so I'm sure he's just living just fine.
Yeah, well, yeah, I hope he's going to be enjoying this. One car I'm definitely going to keep an eye into is the 24 Bailey Turner. Was really fast here, if I'm not mistaken, too. Won the last race at the Indianapolis road course. After fighting with, if I'm not mistaken, that was Jeff Wright, I believe he was fighting with for that win.
We named off all the guys that we were looking at, road racers, and the guys we usually think of as the road ringers, even if they're grand ovals. Neither of us mentioned Bailey Turner, but obviously he's more than capable of running up at the front, and looks to probably be a threat up for the top 5 for sure tonight. He's
been so close to the season on multiple occasions to getting a win, and unfortunately he hasn't been quite there. But Bailey Turner is an aggressive driver and knows when to be aggressive. And that's definitely helped him out quite a bit here, as he's currently running in 4th. He's got the leaders within his sights. You see a big lockup up ahead, Sprout, and he's really struggling. And this is, you can't really afford this to lock up your tires. I think this is the 3rd time we've seen smoke come out from the 19. And, you know, what is it going to do to his tires, really, over the course of this run?
Well, yeah, definitely in the short term. You know, this lap, it might not hurt him, or even the next couple laps. But obviously, as they wear out, you know, on iRacing, when you lock up a tire, it takes off 3, 4, 5% of that tire life. So he might struggle towards the back end of this run coming up to the pit stop, and you might have to think about with the wear he's already put on, sliding around, coming in a couple laps early and try to undercut some of these guys.
Even considering, too, talking about the pit stop, these guys have to wait quite a while for it. A few window for these drivers, about 70% of the tank is what they are allowed to use. That gives you about 23 to 25 laps of gas, and that's going to mean you have to carry the tires that amount. And we're only on lap 4, so we only completed 3, so these guys are already kind of loose in some places. Only going to get a lot worse over the course of the run. You can see Bailey Turner, which are also pretty loose.
Yeah, just on the pit stops real quick, opinion, it's just 23 to 25 laps, that's right about half distance. I think we can take the two-stop strategy out of this. I think that won't be the key unless we see some major fall off, like 2-3 seconds towards lap 10 or 15. But I think everybody's basically going to pit right at halfway.
Yeah, pretty much. So cut that extra pit stop out of the equation, I think, is the best policy. That being said, we've at Auto Club Speed, we kind of saw a mixed strategy. Guys going on one stop, guys going on two stops, which is really interesting to see. Don't think we're going to see that quite on a road course, but I've seen fire and I've seen rain, so we never know what we might see here. As Calusa already expanding his lead to 3 seconds, so he's looking really comfortable. As Sproul's kind of starting to hold up guys in behind him. He's collected a train of cars stretching from Adam Cattle all the way back to, I see, Casey Lacatus and Clifton Cockrell in the mix as well.
Yeah, the biggest thing with what Martin's dealing with right now is he's okay where he's at. I mean, having a train behind you just means you're a little bit slower than the guys behind you, but for the guys behind, especially Adam Cabot, it gets really frustrating. So eventually, whether he just has to make a big move, it looks like a problem there for, I think that's Casey. But anyways, what I was saying, the guys behind him, especially Adam Cabot, are definitely going to get impatient and might force a move, and that's going to be a time that, like I said, lock the brakes and make a mistake.
And for Casey, the cars just went into the hairpin, didn't completely go out. Ooh, got hit by Alex Bell.
I think that was Alex Bell, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to see. Yeah, that right front doesn't look terrible.
Yeah, I think he looks okay. It just kind of glanced off him, and it's not a huge aero track, so I think he'll be okay.
Taking a look back at Conor Horn in the 3, wow, he's really on autopilot or something. He's dropped 22 seconds back from Bryce Calusa. I thought he would have been gaining. I am not sure what's going on with Conor Horn, but I guess just out for a Sunday drive.
Yeah, maybe he feels like with the points gap that he has, he can just kind of chill out, have a nice evening. Obviously, he feels that AJ can't make up enough points. Then he feels confident next week to still be able to bring the championship home. The only thing that crossed my mind that I'm not entirely sure of, obviously, is the fuel load. Maybe he knows something we don't as far as fuel saving, tire saving, but at the pace he's going, I'm not entirely sure that that's a possibility.
And you see there, 130.8 is what Conor Horn ran. Up by Bryce Calusa, he ran a 129.8 and has gone even faster before. So, yeah, I don't know if he's just being extremely conservative on the tires. I think this might argue as being too conservative. But we'll see if this continues for him. If he's, again, if he knows something that we don't. I mean, there's a reason he's won 8 races this season. We'll definitely say that. So we'll see if the 3's got anything in store. I am a little bit worried, though, if he is just kind of back here trying to take it easy with the points. He has a decent gap of 14 points, but that's also not a lot, especially considering AJ's running pretty well himself, all the way up in 5th. And he's got a few positions in front of him to get as well.
Yeah, AJ's definitely within shouting distance of, a nice pit stop or a nice couple laps or mistakes even, grabbing 3 more spots, and that would be, about 10 points to his favor from where Conor's sitting at, so that would bring the gap down inside 5 points head the next week. The only thing that I can think of for Conor is that he must be hanging out thinking people are going to make mistakes, go off track, spin, have issues, but there's a point where you're too far behind where if we saw like Jeff Wright has a mistake, he was able to get going back in front of Conor, so you don't want to get too far behind.
Yeah, you pretty much said it right there, especially considering looking at the majority of the fields kind of in this little group here, all behind Martin Sproul, all the way back from 2nd here to about 7th place is this little group of guys. And we got another pack with Alex Bell. This is really a lot of the pack where a lot of drivers have had incidents. Speaking of which, Bell's struggling to get back on the gas. These guys really struggling with the throttle application here as the track's gone even higher up in temperature, 107, and that's not what these guys want. And they want to get cooler, not hotter.
Yeah, I think Alex is just kind of biding his time. I've raced with Alex for over 5 years now. He's he was self-admittedly not a great road racer. I'm sure he'll just do his thing, not fight a faster car like Jeff or anybody, but I'm sure he's looking forward to getting back on the ovals next week.
And do you think for Jeff, now that he's spun, he's lost quite a bit of track position. Do you change the strategy up or anything? Maybe not that you really have a lot to play with in the first place, or do you change the way you attack the race?
Well, I think it's a little bit too early to, throw your initial strategy out the window, especially with the way that Sproul is up in front of him. He's only 5, 6, 7 seconds behind where Martin is holding up that whole pack, so that might help him be able to make up a little bit of time each lap. But I think it's probably too early to throw the book out and try something different with a pit strategy or something. But if we get to be where he's still running back 7th, 8th, 9th in about 10 laps, he might try something different.
Definitely have to keep an eye on him. Again, some solid pace. Again, the consistency, though, at least in the race, not quite there. And Where Calusa still extending his lead, 4 seconds ahead. Sproul even 2. Oh no! I was just about to say, was expanding his lead in from Bailey Turner, who inherited 3rd place, but now pretty much all gave that up as he went sliding through turn 1. Let's take a look at that.
Yeah, as fantastic of a save as that was, I actually can't believe he held on to that. Unfortunately, as we were talking about, that's going to be a bunch of wear on those tires, and he's only going to continue to struggle. But it looked cool, that's for sure.
I want to see if I can get a cool slow-mo shot of this, because that was a really impressive drift.
Yeah, that's one that Ryan should put on the advertising for next season.
There we go. There's some slow-mo action right there. Car just getting out way sideways. I honestly was expecting him to just completely bail out and spin. And look at that. Straight from Fast and Furious right there. And honestly, if he keeps doing that to his tires, he's probably going to end up doing that a lot more. And I think that's the big concern here. And Bailey Turner, who slowly moved his way up to 3rd place after getting past Cabot and also, I believe, got past Travato as well, is now knocking on the door. This 24 could be the car to look at to chase down Calusa.
Yeah, he's going to have to get a move on, though. Obviously, all the time that Martin gained with Bailey making that pass, he gave right back up, and now we're back to where we were a couple laps ago with Martin just kind of out in front in the way. It looks like he's found his balance a little bit, and he's maintaining about a half a second gap, but he's just going to have to be careful from now on with those rear tires.
Taking a look, for the most part, passing not exactly the easiest thing for these drivers. Whoa, as you see, Sproul still loose on his tires. And it's kind of really showing case in point with Martin Sproul. He's really sideways out a lot of these corners and losing a lot of traction on the exit, but is still able to keep these guys in behind. Why do you think that might be?
Well, obviously, there's a little bit of a different way to find speed as he's going to go for a spin
Oh,
here,
no.
I was just going to say that another great save, actually. He keeps going, only lost 3 spots there, but obviously Clifton Cockrell's on top of him. It's not a big deal in the short term. When you heat those tires up, you can actually make some time by being aggressive with your right foot, but obviously having to get at least 22, 23 laps out of these tires, he's going to definitely pay for it in the back half of this run.
All right, now we're definitely after, once Turner comes back to the start finish line, we're going to have to probably start keeping a look on the lap times, because now Turner's got some clean air to work with. Not completely out of the clear just yet. He's got Stravato and Cabot to deal with. Actually, Cabot going to throw it up the inside on the final corner before heading back onto the oval. And was not able to get it done, but you can see, I guess, not completely done for Bailey Turner. He's got a lot more to deal with.
Yeah, the problem is right now that they're almost 10 seconds, approaching 10 seconds behind Bryce Calusa. So even if they're making a little bit of headway, every time that Adam sticks his nose out to try to make a pass or Bailey has to go a little bit defensive, they're going to give all that right back. So if they're going to catch him and make good lap time, they're going to have to stay in line.
Also, update too on Jeff Wright. He's kind of closing in on these drivers here. He's not exactly closing to the leader quite. In fact, he's actually lost a second overall since the last time we took a look at him. But he has started to close back up to Elliott Butler and is moving himself into 8th place. Also looking back at Conor Horn, who's all the way back in 12th. Still losing time overall to the leader, and that pace is continuing to drop off now. 131.6.
Yeah, I'm curious. We might have to ask Connor later so that we can get back to it next week what his strategy was. I think he made a mistake in turn 1 earlier. Someone said in my ear there that he had to spin in turn 1, but regardless, he's definitely a little bit off pace, so he's probably just taking it easy, but I guess we both expected him to still drive through the field nonetheless.
Yeah, and that's the surprising thing too, is that, you know, it wasn't like he was slow in practice. He was pretty fast in practice, was 3rd on the board. So he has the pace in the car. I'm just surprised he's not, you know, he's still losing time to leaders. I can get taking it easy, but again, he'll be just taking it a little bit too easy. You see him trying to work around Sturgill here.
Yeah, he might be one of the... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just sorry. I just wanted to take a look at the car just in case he had any damage. Nope, that car looks pretty much fine as it rolled off the hauler.
Yeah, I was just going to say that maybe that spin happened in the first few laps, and he's just really struggling. Might be one of the guys that's really struggling with the hotter track temp, getting his feet back under him and feeling comfortable, because you can be as fast as you want, but if you're not comfortable, it's going to be hard to put laps together.
Up in the front, Adam Cabot going to turn past in front of Bailey Turner into turn 1. Turner struggling to get back on the gas, but will keep Stravato in behind. Quick look at that pass as it was set up. Fantastic driving from the guys up ahead, and this is what I was talking about. Not completely out of the picture for Cabot here. Take a look. And run down the front straightaway, and this is typically, I would say, probably the best passing opportunities to run down to turn 1.
That's a great move. It looks like he just stuck his nose in there. Was a little bit braver on the brakes. I think we're at the point of the run now. We're 10 laps in. If Bailey didn't have anything to fight with, he probably didn't hold him up too bad on turn in there.
And looking back on the other side of the course now that these guys have gotten to, and Kemp still holding that lead, at least of this pack overall lead, again still by Bryce Cluse. I gotta imagine it might be getting a little bit boring because he's 10 seconds clear of everyone else. I'm sure he now knows how Conor Horn feels for most races.
Yeah, and as we talk about every week, he's kind of got the cards in his hand at least as far as this week is concerned. He can wait for everybody to pit and basically run himself out of fuel. And as long as he doesn't actually run out of fuel, he can have the freshest tires at the end. Obviously, we're not going to get a caution, so he can afford to give up 1 or 2 seconds for a couple of laps. 3, 4, 5 laps even before he makes a pit stop when these guys start coming in. Yeah,
I think on the point of giving up time, I think he's got definitely quite a bit of leeway to, pace himself and outdrive himself, because he's got a lead to work with to bleed off a few tenths to make sure he doesn't spin out or make a mistake like most of the other drivers near the front have at some point in the day. And I think that'll be key for him winning this race. You see Stravato throw a pass up the inside, trying to get around Bailey. Turner not biting just yet. You see these guys struggling to keep it to the track through a tight section here to the hairpin.
Oh, maybe a little bit of contact. Bailey's going to save it off the track in the dirt.
And Turner going to get that car back on course, all the way back to 5th, though. Just in front of Ellie Butler and Jeff Wright. Take a look here and see that was looking kind of close, but I don't know if there was contact now. We'll have to see. Take a look off the rear of Bailey Turner. See Stravato in the frame barely as they come to the hairpin here. No, just got loose on his own.
Definitely easy to do. I know a lot of guys struggle trying to get these cars slowed down, playing with brake bias, and like I said, he fortunately was able to save it. Only lost a couple of spots, but multiple seconds down the drain, he's now back with Elliott Butler.
Yeah, especially because again we know he has the pace, but again that error cost him quite a bit of time and also put him back way quite a few spots. Speaking of being back quite a few spots, Orange Sprout's dropped all the way back to 8th place, and I have a feeling he might continue to drop back if again he doesn't have the tires under control.
Definitely been a struggle for Martin. Was won the pole with a fantastic lap, but he's kind of fallen by the wayside. Mistakes start early, and once you get behind on that tire heat and the tire wear, it's almost impossible to make up as the lap car they're leaving the pits lets these guys go.
Yeah, that's actually series admin Brian Chambliss. Looks like he's actually going to technically cut out of the pit road. You're not supposed to do that. In iRacing, at least, you're supposed to blend back in on the track, which is a really stupid way of doing it. But
repaves. We need the repave with the line in there.
Yep. Oh man, I really wish we did have the repave, because I think especially a lot of these guys would be absolutely glad to not have this hairpin to deal with. Because this is honestly probably one of the trickiest corners on the track, and we've seen quite a few guys nearly loop it, or if not loop it completely around here.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky racetrack, but I think a lot of guys embrace it and they're enjoying it. But notice Alex Bell's way wide there. Holy cow.
I was out of the camera shot, he was so wide, and yeah, he's also been struggling a little bit, but Conor Horn with the pass around Bell finally gets himself in the top 10 for the first time this race.
Yeah, that's not what AJ wanted to see. Obviously, AJ's up in 3rd, and he was kind of hoping that Conor would just stay back at 13th or 14th all night, and he could make a good chunk of points. Like I said, with less than 20 cars here tonight, even if AJ finishes 3rd, if Conor's able to get up to 5th or 6th, it's a minimal point gain. I think that would be a good night in Conor's book for how it started.
Yeah, and again, I guess it's still kind of setting a decent pace to work at. He's running at a 132.1, which is still off a little bit from our leaders, but I think he's might be trying to close in the gap a little bit. He's definitely catching the cars up ahead, so taking the leader out of the picture, he's definitely catching up to the guys ahead, which is, as you're saying, not entirely good for Stravato. Now, what Stravato needs to do, well, I would say he needs to win the race, but with Cluse clear now 12 seconds from him, yeah, I think he's going to have to, at the very least, go for 2nd place, which is Adam Cabot at the moment.
Yeah, the only thing that he can hope for, because Cluse is like 12 seconds gone, they're not going to catch him just on pure pace, because Cluse is just going to pace himself. The only thing Bryce has to worry about I've been there myself sometimes on these road courses. You get so relaxed and you're trying to be so patient that you end up making mistakes because you're not in a rhythm anymore. You just take yourself out of that rhythm of going hard every lap and, you know, shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, there definitely is a fine line. You can't, as you're saying, you can't, you know, completely go pedal to the metal because you're going to make a mistake. You can't go completely off because then you'll also make a mistake. You want to just back off a little bit just to ensure that, you know, you don't loop the car, but also, again, as you're saying, not too slow and off the pace that you just start messing up your corners. Then you'll start bleeding off way too much time that way. So fine line, but Lewis is still, he's not even giving up time, still expanding time as one of the fastest cars on the track. And in fact, I believe has set the fastest lap of the race with 1:28.1, which he said earlier.
Yeah, he's definitely in good shape, and like we said, he got clean air immediately. He hasn't had to battle anybody, so even if he's giving up a little bit of time, he's been able to look after his tires and just maintain a nice pace that's going to pay off here, I think, in the next 10 laps or so before a pit stop.
And speaking of pit stops, so we were talking about a two-tire strategy potentially working out. I don't think that's going to be quite the case here. Just going to waste too much time. But there is quite a bit of fall off. 4 seconds from Calusa's fastest lap to the pace he's running now, which is pretty solid. But again, not enough to, I think, offset the pit road time, which I think is the big factor.
Yeah, we definitely brought it up, a two-stopper, you know. And for maybe somebody like Clifton Cockrell, who we didn't talk about earlier either, you know, he's having a great run up and forth. But, you know, why not roll the dice and try something? I guess if you feel like you can make up a good significant amount of time, then that would be something maybe to think about here in the next lap or two.
Yeah, and ideally you're gonna, if you want to cut this race up into nice equal thirds with a two-tire strategy, two-stop strategy, do not take 2 tires on a road course. It's a very bad decision. But with a two-stop strategy, ideally you want to maybe come in, you know, pretty much this lap and then lap 30. So we'll see if anyone does indeed try to take it and throw a wrench into things as we look at everyone else coming through. Bryce Calusa obviously staying out. I think for the most part we should see these guys stay out, but never do know what's going on through a driver's head.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say is that AJ and Adam and some of these guys back second, third, fourth, fifth, they got to have their eyes open because Brian Chambliss has had a little bit of a struggle tonight, but on his fresh tires, he's just carved these guys up like a Thanksgiving turkey. So there's definitely time to be had with fresh tires, but you got to make the decision basically now.
Oh, I actually see someone. Is that Jeff Wright? Indeed it is, and Casey Licata's falling in as well. Okay. And this is kind of what I wanted to see. I wanted to see a driver with some pace. Again, no offense to anyone else that's coming at this moment, but I just to see, you know, a driver that has some solid pace to really maximize the tires, because that's the only way you can make this strategy work. So this is going to be. So now we got a kind of a benchmark to see if this strategy was worth anything at all.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on the lap time. Again, I don't think we have to worry about Bryce. He's going to manage that lap time and, you know, make the right pit call, but we definitely have to look at what Adam runs in second, AJ right behind him in a little bit of traffic, what those guys run compared to Jeff Wright, and see what kind of fall off they have, at least for the first couple laps.
I think if anything else, I think at least the extra stop will give you fresh tires to work with, and you're not going to be sliding around over the place, which could just help you, you know, just stick on the track, which we've seen has been pretty important in this race as well. You see both Wright and Licata's peeling off ahead of Brandon Gagnon, who has not made a stop. So those are Wright and Licata are the only drivers at the moment on a two-stop strategy. Brian Chambliss, he's come in already, but he's currently 2 laps off the pace, so got a ways to go. Looking at the moment, not too many battles going on. Most of the guys are pretty much separated out. Also, just not a lot of cars running on the track. We started with 17 that took the grid, and of those 17, we're only left with 15 running.
Yeah, I should have gone out there and run 1 lap and then joined you up here and gotten some decent points.
I mean, why not, right? I think that's what, speaking of which, that's what David Mott did one race. He, I think it was in a field race that I was doing, because he also races in that series. He ran a few laps and was going to join me with a third person in, but he decided to actually stay out because he was doing pretty well, and then unfortunately he had a wreck. And then he came back up in the booth, and we were all like, "Oh, you're doing so well."
Yeah, we've all been there, where you just have a certain plan going into the night. You think it's just going to chill, and we talked about that with a couple guys tonight, where they didn't expect big nights, and we expected them to just kind of chill out, and boom, they're up in the top 10 just through some attrition.
Yeah, one driver I'm actually kind of surprised to see in the top 5 is Clifton Cockrell. He's having a pretty good run. We mentioned him a little bit earlier, but I'm not mistaken, this is one of the best runs he's had all season. In fact, it is. The highest finish I ever recorded from this season was 7th at Martinsville, so doing pretty well for himself, looking to get his first top 5 finish of the season. And he's been a pretty solid midfield driver, but nice to see him near the front.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Martinsville, another place with some attrition and some good tire wear that you got to kind of manage your race car throughout the race. Obviously, this race is a little bit of the same with that. I talked to him earlier, actually. He was extremely excited about this. He was really hyped and hoping for a solid run, but I think a top 5 would definitely be just what the doctor ordered for him. I think he'd be psyched about that.
Looking through the rest of the order, I got Bailey Turner and Elliott Butler close to each other within a second. That's lining up to be the closest battle on the track. Also Martin Sprout, who's felt up in his 7th after Jeff Wright pit. Speaking of Jeff Wright, working through the final part of the... Whoa, he goes a little bit wide. Curious to see what the lap time is for the 48. Should be his first lap with first complete lap with fresh tires as he comes back onto the oval. And then this is kind of looking, trying to see where is he going to come up into the mix. And across the line for Jeff Wright. 132.3, so not a particularly good lap for him.
No, like I said, there must have been some sort of little bit of a mistake there. That's not too much quicker than the guys at the very front are running. But of course, when you and I both know when you're on old tires and you're really struggling and come put new ones on, sometimes it's hard to change your mind over where your other brake zone is or how hard you can push your corner exit. So it might take him a lap or two, but I think he's going to need at least 4 or 5 seconds a lap gain for this to work out. But like I said, someone had to roll the dice, and I'm glad someone's trying it.
And really am, so I know. Keeping an eye on the weather. Oh my god. Wow. Track temp 111 degrees. Is this continuing to escalate here at Indianapolis? And no signs of it getting cooler for the drivers.
And again, that's another thing that might play into the two-top strategy. If we see the track temp towards the end of this thing approaching, even 120 degrees, they're going to definitely be slipping and sliding on the one stock because they're going to be pushing 20, 25 laps in that second stint. That's a lot to ask of these stock cars on the road course.
Yeah, well, for these guys, they only have to go about 5 or so laps more, really, and then they can finally come in and get some fresh Goodyears to work with. I'm sure they can't wait for that to happen. Most of the drivers, again, looking to be about 5 seconds, 4 to 5 seconds off their fastest laps. The in behind lap cars working their way on through. AJ Servato in 3rd place. Then we got Jeremy Miller, who we saw had some trouble early on lap 1. All the way back in 14th, 1 lap down. Then we got Brian Chambliss also as well, 15th, 2 laps down.
Yeah, the car I'm going to keep an eye on, we just talked about him, Jeff Wright. Obviously, he was running right about 7th place before his pit stop, about 3-4 laps here. We expected everybody else to come to the pit road on 1 stop, but we're going to see where he cycles in because I think he's definitely obviously going to be ahead of where he was, but he's going to need probably 15 seconds at least ahead of the guys he was racing, Martin Sprout, Elliott Butler, to try to make this work because obviously he has to come back in another time.
Yeah, actually, could you pull up on your screen on iRacing what his lap time is? I think he had a bad lap time and it didn't count it. Or at least didn't record it on my scoring software.
Yeah, it hasn't scored mine either, so that could be either off track or some sort of penalty. But the lap before the previous, he ran 27.62 and 28.55, so he's definitely 3 to 4 seconds quicker. But he's still out there struggling a little bit with the hot track temp. But he's definitely making significant amounts of time. But I'm just not sure it's going to be enough once they equal out.
Martin Sprout actually looking like he might be getting back to Elliott Butler, so it was looking to be a really poor run for Sprout. I was expecting him to drop further and further back. He's actually caught up there. You see in frame, you can see Elliott Butler, Bailey Turner, and Clifton Cockrell 6th, 5th, and 4th directly ahead. So he's actually still lined up for a really solid finish here.
Yeah, we talked about Sprout, kind of having a little bit of a struggle early and maybe taking himself out of the normal strategy that we'd see. But he, like I said, if he beats these guys to pit road by even 1 lap, he might be able to leap all of them on an undercut and come back out in 4th place and still be lined up for a top 5. So I think that's got to be on his mind.
And really coming to that, what's the best call, really? Do you think that is it better to do an undercut? Or is it better to try to just run the tank out and then come in and you have some fresher tires to work with at the end?
Well, I guess, like you said, that kind of depends on your situation. As Miller has a little bit of a spin there. Looks like he's going to get back going. it really kind of depends what your motive is. I guess if you're someone that's looking for a points chase, you don't want to do anything that's crazy or outside the norm to try to put yourself in a bad spot. So you don't want to end up behind anybody. You don't have to. So I think we're going to see AJ Stravado probably come in a little bit earlier than someone like Clifton Cockrell, who can afford to roll the dice and try to be faster at the end.
Yeah, looking up ahead, I honestly want to see. Did you ever hear about the scandal that happened in Formula E in the esports race?
Yeah, with the esports driver.
Yeah, and they swapped. He had an actual pro driver swap with the real driver.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the reason I bring that up because Bryce Clues a 17-second lead ahead of Cabot. I want to see if that's Conor Horn behind the wheel.
Yeah, I've done my share of road rigging, and it's always a little bit suspicious when everybody struggles a certain amount and there's one guy that's just light years better. But like I said, he's ran a very smart race, a very controlled race, and he's definitely in control, managed his tires the best, but we might have to do a teardown on that car post race.
Yeah, no, and again, we are both joking. Again, not to dig a clue. So again, we're showing some really solid pace in Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, but really, I think most of this is just due to him being, as you're saying, consistent. As exchange for position in behind, Stravado has found himself up in his second place, just ahead of Adam Cabot, but not completely out of the clear just yet.
Yeah, the car, like I was watching behind him, Brian Chambliss is a couple laps down, but he drove up to these guys with his fit tires in just a couple laps and was way faster, but it looks like that seemed to fall off, so maybe the two stop is going to have to make other time at the beginning of the run, because I expected him to go right by these guys on 10 or 15 lap pressure tires, but he's still stuck behind the top, or third, sorry.
Yeah, I'm curious if this is him, just kind of waiting to get past these guys, because obviously he's 2 laps down, these guys are fighting on the lead lap, so he's just being a little bit nice here, and sticking him behind, waiting for a time to come on through. I think we might have lost Jeff Wright.
Yeah, that was my fear when I saw that he wasn't having lap time scored, that he was having some kind of connection issue with a latency or a ping or a qual.
And Jeff has actually notably been having more and more connection issues in the later half of this season. It's almost like whatever has been happening to Joshua Banks for the last few seasons is gets transferred over to Jeff when Josh isn't running. And I think, with Nutzing right back, I think we have lost connection from him, which is really unfortunate because, again, that was kind of what we're looking at the benchmark for that 2-tire stop. I guess that's now going to have to be looked at by Casey Lakatos, who is running pretty much on par with Jeff Wright. Really the only driver continuing on with that 2-tire call. Everyone else waiting to come into the pits, and pretty much the window is just about to open up for these guys here as we're approaching halfway.
Yep, we're just about at that point where they can come in. I expect Bryce to go, 2, 3, 4 laps longer if he has the fuel. Obviously, he can afford to give back, 10 seconds, I guess, if he wants to on fresh tires and just kind of manage this. But we might see someone, like I said, like AJ come in as soon as he's in a window where he feels comfortable. And definitely try to make sure he stays in second, as here he comes right now.
Oh yeah, and I was curious to see if we might see Cabot stay out, but I think he doesn't want to lose any more time to this to the 33. Might try to pass him here on pit road. These guys getting woe down for pit road speed. And the first takers here on this round of pit stops, there you see Bailey Turner, Martin Sprout. Everyone seems to be coming in. Elliot Butler, Clifton Cockrell, Conor Horn.
Yeah, they must be desperate on the tire wear there, because everybody came in as soon as we got to halfway. They're all feeling like they need to get in as soon as possible and get the second half of this race started. You don't want to speed here, though. This is definitely a long, slow pit road, and having to do a drive-through would be a huge loss of time.
Yeah, you can see, too, how close everyone is to one another. So you make a mistake like that, you're going to cost yourself a lot of time and a lot of spots. Pit roads become a very busy place over the course of this lap. Notably,
just reading through chat. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just looking. I heard someone coming past the screen, but I think it was a lap car. You're saying?
Yeah, I was just reading through chat. Apparently, Jeff said in chat that I was hearing the background but didn't count at the time. He must have spun through pit road or entered the pits incorrectly from the oval or whatever. He got a black flag and got DQ'd for not serving a penalty, I think.
Ah, man, that sucks. That really sucks. And, well, like that's going to end Jeff Wright's day. After looking to be somewhat promising, too. I'm going to be annoyed at the fact we never got to see where he would have ended up. But with the race off, pit road's going to be Stravado. That'll be ahead of Cabot by actually a little bit more. He's actually expanded that gap. Casey Lakatos going to actually jump ahead of Turner, Sprout, and Elliot Butler. Remember, Lakatos is going to have to make one more stop before this is all said and done.
Yeah, so the fresh tires definitely did him wonders. He made up like 15 or 20 seconds there in just a few laps, but obviously he's going to be on the older tires now for a couple laps and then have to do a whole pit stop again. So
Yeah,
the big loser in that cycle was definitely Clifton Cockrell, though.
yeah. Actually, word he dropped back to ninth. Yeah, he got. You gotta look at what happened to him. It just seems like he just was slow on pit road itself. It seems had a 49-second run through pit road. Everyone else was closer to 48 seconds. And again, that's what I was saying. One mistake, even though not major, wasn't speeding, cost him some spots, and actually that moves Conor Horn up into 8th place. And Conor slowly but surely moving his way up through the order. And I guess this is I guess what he was trying to do. He's found himself up near the front of the field. I guess you're like you're saying earlier too is wow, Elliott Butler almost smacks the wall on the front stretch. The fact that there aren't many cars here, I think this is kind of playing into his favor.
Yeah, and if he has any speed now that he's back on fresh tires and he feels like he has a decent grasp on how hard he can push, he's only about 5 seconds behind Bailey Turner and Martin Sproul, and obviously Casey's going to back up to him here on the older tires, so he's definitely not have a shot at running 4th or 5th yet in this race either, so I think that that's not something that AJ Estrada wants to hear. He's going to send me a text later, I'm sure, and make me upset for jinxing the poor run that Conor had at the start, but it's looking like it's going to be a solid point stay still for Conor Horn.
So looking back at AJ Estrada, you'll see when his car turns past the camera here, a lot of damage to the rear of that car, and I'm not entirely sure where he got it.
Yeah, I don't remember any incident, but like I said, it's, one of these slow corners, he could have just gotten a little bit of a tap or slid into his pit box incorrectly and tapped the rear end. The way the damage model works is so up in the air now, you never know, but just a little bit of contact, I don't think it'll hurt him too bad or anything like that. This car is pristine right here. Bryce Calusa's still running a perfect race.
Yeah, actually, on that point, he actually lost a lot of time, and I'm not
I think
sure.
He made his pit stop. I think he's done on pit road last lap or two.
Yeah, but I'm surprised he was had a 17-second lead, and he had dropped all the way down to 6 seconds. So that's what I'm concerned about. I would have thought he would have still been at least above 10 seconds, even with the guys with fresher tires. But
yeah, even on just an in lap, he could have been a little bit conservative on his entry, making sure he didn't speed, and then like we said, probably a 3 or 4 second gain from each of the laps. So even I think he went 2 laps longer. So I expected him to be right about 10 seconds, but obviously he was a little bit more conservative. But I think he's just going to have a smooth ride from here, still having a couple of pressure tires. These guys.
yeah, I mean, he's got the advantage of saying he's got the cards in his hands. He's just got to play it, and really, I guess, not really play them too hard. I think right now, as you're saying, just needs to just drive away a little bit, like he did in the first run, and just manage the gap back to AJ Estrada, who's and all these guys have been pretty much just struggling to catch up and keep up with him.
Yeah, Cabot's the one that I'm looking at is kind of struggling a little bit right now as Elliott Butler's back on pit road. I'm not sure if he's stopped yet, but Cabot was right on top of AJ Estrada there for most of that first run. They came into pits together, and he's almost fallen back to Bailey Turner now.
Yeah, I think for Elliott Butler, it was a penalty for him. And this is not exactly what Butler needed for his day, so he's going to have to sit in here for quite a while and just kind of wait for the penalty. I think it's the second penalty for speeding off or bad exit off pit road. So, fortunate for Butler, going to put him all the way back in 12th, a lap down there. He finally gets underway.
Yeah, we talked about earlier not wanting to make a mistake on a pit stop, even if it's just, like penalty like that, the 50-second hold, and then probably 20 or so seconds it takes you to drive all the way through pit road. That's almost a whole entire lap you're losing. So obviously he wasn't up running in the front 2 or 3, so he definitely went lap down Bryce Calusa. He's going to have a hard time making up any of that time.
We just saw something occur between Bailey Turner and Martin Sproul, and indeed here it is on the replay entering turn 1. This has caught a few drivers off guard today, especially Martin Sproul. We did the same thing on lap 1, just went way too wide, and Sproul went on through.
Yep, I'm sure Martin's excited that it was somebody else this time, and he was able to get one of those spots back from earlier.
And move himself up into 4th place, and I'm sure he learned a lot from that first run too, as far as tire management. He seems to be a lot more consistent towards the end of the run. He's now got fresh tires to work with and to run down everyone else up ahead. Speaking of running people down, who's almost inside the top 5, Conor Horn.
Are we surprised?
No, not really. I mean, he always finds a way somehow to get near the front before the races end. Obviously, I guess probably not as much near the front as we would have thought. We would have thought he would have been leading this race, but still running pretty well. And again, that's why he has 8 wins this season. He's been killing it. And he is going to lose some points to AJ Stravato, but again, I think he can account for it. I think at the rate we're going, I think Stravato will only bring that down from a 14-point gap to around 10 points. So not exactly the gain Stravato needed, but hey, those 4 points could have been all the difference come next week at Phoenix. We'll have to see.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen next week. Of course, obviously a 1 mile oval is a tricky place, and there can be some incidents with the way the dog leg works, but Conor likes to do that for sure. He likes to make us all sit up here and worry if something's seriously wrong or if he has a bunch of damage, and then we check in 5 laps later and it's the fastest car on track, so I guess we shouldn't worry about him anymore.
And looking also at some other stuff going on the track, not too much is really occurring. At the moment, most of these guys pretty spread out. The closest battle we're looking at really is between Martin Sproul and Bailey Turner. That's going on for 4th place. Up ahead, Calusa, he's starting to expand the gap out between himself and AJ Stravato, looking at an easy win if he can keep up the pace for the 20 car.
Yeah, you just got, like we said earlier, keep the wheels on it, keep it on track, and make no mistakes. Pretty much everybody else has made at least one mistake gone off, even if it was minor, because we've seen Bailey Turner and Martin Sproul make several mistakes, and obviously Conor Horn had early issues, and they're all up in the top 6. So as long as he keeps it going straight, I think that with the fresher tires, nobody's going to have a big run at him.
Now just taking over 8 seconds too, and Adam Cabby, he's kind of fallen off the pace as well from at least AJ Stravato. He's fallen back around 4 seconds from the back of the 33. Seeing his lap time this time through, 30.4 for Cabot, 30.4 for Stravato, but a 129.7 for Calusa. And that's kind of showing the difference in pace amongst our top 3.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, he doesn't even have to run that fast. Like you said, you know, he's got about an 8-second lead. He can afford to give up a couple of tenths a lap just being careful. You know, obviously making no mistakes. The mistake will cost you way more time than just taking it somewhat easy for these last less than 20 laps here. But I'm sure he's comfortable at this pace. He's not running, you know, the qualifying laps that we saw earlier in the 26s and 27s. But this hard track, he's definitely going to err on the side of caution.
Absolutely. And I think with that, a little bit of a sound surge here, so gotta turn up the engines, turn up your volume if you haven't already, and listen to the sound of these V8 engines. Alright, we're back here at Indianapolis to start looking at these guys again. Still looking at that battle that was starting to now fade off between Lawrence Brown and Bailey Turner, but a new battle starting to pick up as Sprout was caught up to the back bumper of Cabot.
Yeah, Sproul's made great headway since his pit stop, so obviously his first run wasn't what he wanted, but he's still on for a podium. Adam Cabot is really struggling, which surprises me because I thought he had pretty equal speed with AJ Stravado, but they've lost almost 6 seconds to the 33 car.
You can see Sprout I think we're kind of seeing why too. Up ahead of Cabot, he's being held up by that's Brandon Gagnon in the 83, a lap car. He's finally going to pull out of the way. I'm sure Cabot would have liked to be pulled off about a few turns earlier because now he's got a mirror full of Martin Sprout.
Yeah, it's a tough place to get out of the way. I've been there. I ran an IMSA race the other day at Road America this past week, and if someone catches you through the carousel or into the kink getting down the Canada corner, you can't really get out of the way. If they don't ever run on you down the straightaway, you can't just pull off the straightaway. So I understand what Brandon's at, and he got out of the way the first opportunity.
And it looks like Sprout not quite able to get to the... Oh! As they say that, he's going to be loose, and so is Sprout. It's synchronized spinning into turn one, and they're going to hit each other as well, and you see them struggling to both get back up to speed. Now here's Bailey Turner trying to pick up the pieces as he's trying to get back on the gas. Not quite, as Cabot's going to barely hang on for fourth.
And Conor Horn in the background of that, he's definitely licking his chops, excuse me. He feeling like he can pass all three of these guys and only have HA gain 1 point on him if he can end up third tonight.
Yeah, he's looking at them all right there ahead of him and waiting for Conor Horn to take the spot. Again, Conor has the pace here. He might, we'll see if he turns up the wick here to finally get those spots because he's so close to being inside the podium here. Onto the back.
He's going to make these passes on Barrett too, Finian, sorry, but he's going to have to actually make these passes. It's not really a track car combination where you can use the bumper like you might think of in stock cars because you're going so slow and the cars are so slippery. You can't just push someone out of the way because they will spin out.
Yeah, we've seen quite a few guys spin, if not get very side, which we saw there too. I want to pull away to look at that, but I have a feeling we're going to see a change for position here as we come back onto the oval. Top third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, all on a battle for that third place spot in frame. And it's starting to get racy here in the last 15 laps. For Conor Horn climbing up to over 190 miles an hour, not quite able to get there. Looks like he's going to have to sit in line. So I think we'll take this time to quickly try to look back at what happened a lap ago with these guys, because that was a bizarre incident experiencing two guys both sideways.
Yeah, it was one of those incidents where I think Adam was trying to drive in deep to protect from where Martin was coming, and then Martin was trying to drive in deep to capitalize, and they both ended up sliding. And I've been in that position before. You can't just turn the car when you're sliding like that. You just kind of end up where you end up, and they both did a great job hanging on, but obviously slid to each other.
See right there, both cars finding each other awkwardly out of the turn. We'll try to get another angle of it here.
Another great save this time by Adam Cabot.
Both of them struggling to get back on the power, get the cars sideways, and then awkwardly hitting each other in the middle of the track. Going back live, things still heated up between this group. No one really getting anywhere or getting on anyone just yet. Conor Horn still sitting behind the 24.
Yeah, and it's nice to see Elliott Butler. I know he's a lap down, but you don't really see a group of 5 this close usually on a road course this late in the race. So there might be contact here. Bailey's going to have to get to the bottom lineup.
Yeah, this is a very familiar sight, seeing Bailey Turner side by side with another car in the final corner in the last race in Indianapolis. He was side by side with for the win, and ended up putting a guy on a wall, but it was able to take the win away. He wasn't mad or upset about it at all. From what the other driver is saying, you see Conor Horn just gonna snake his way on by the 24 and up into 5th for the first time.
Yeah, we talked about that during soundbite earlier that we were talking about how these guys were up over 190 miles an hour at the brakes on turn 1. Obviously, when I was building the set, didn't get to run that in the draft. I was curious how much the draft would be a factor, but as I'm sure you know, we don't really reach 190 at Watkins Glen or Sonoma or Mid-Ohio or anything like that. So definitely the heaviest braking zone probably of the season, and it that's why we've seen so many guys have a hard time getting stopped in turn one.
Now Conor Horn going to try to set his sights up on Adam Cabot for that 4th place spot, and also you're talking about Elliott Butler too. That penalty putting him all the way outside the top 10. It's going the first car lap down, and that would be a good thing at an oval, but at a road course it's not really going to mean much because again, no cautions for these guys to work with. And I really can't wait, honestly, for the day that we do finally get cautions on road courses, because I feel like that's a big thing that we're missing out on.
Yeah, it's such a hard thing to control. I've been in a couple of leagues before where they throw them with the admin. Of course, admin can still throw cautions, but you know, in the current caution system where you get 4 caution laps for every caution type, basically, except at the plate tracks, it's so tough to want to throw cautions because in these shorter races, 45 laps, you know, that's, you know, a tenth of the race that's gone just with throwing 1 caution flag. So it's definitely something that they'll have to, you know, maybe make a quickie caution where everybody can hit, and that would be an option on road courses.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping they're taking the, you know, the short and the long caution thing that they've been adding for some of the longer ovals. Hopefully, that would allow it for cautions on the road courses here. As you see Conor Horn throwing up a pass to the inside of turn 4. I was going to door Adam Cabot here. They're both going to be side by side.
One of the hardest corners to go side by side through because you're almost flat. You really need the track out, and obviously Adam let Conor go right there and didn't cause an incident.
Conor Horn now up into 4th place, and this is again not what AJ needed. And you know, you kind of want to root for your teammate, but also when you're fighting that teammate for the championship, to see him pretty much right back up and behind you, it's not particularly good. And for Strato, can't really do much better except to try to race down Bryce Calusa, which is kind of hard to do with 12 laps ago.
Yeah, Bryce, the last lap I looked was about 8 or 9 tenths faster than AJ and just about everybody else that's on his pit strategy. So I don't think he's really going to be caught. But I tell you, AJ Stravato is definitely the biggest Martin Sproul fan with a big foam finger 19 right now.
Absolutely, you can see there Bryce Calusa 131.5 for him last time through. AJ Stravato now coming out of the final corner for his lap time. He's been running a few tenths off. Actually, that time was an entire second off pace from Calusa. Martin Sproul and company coming out of the final corner now for them. Sproul 132.3. So actually, Sproul actually slowing down quite a bit. This could be him just trying to hold on to 2nd place and make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes or errors. Sproul heading to turn 1 and Conor Horn looming in the background.
He's trying to make the pass on Adam, who's still side by side for turn 2. Job done.
Let's see if Cabot tries to fight back with that if he felt he was done wrong. Looks like it's going to be Turner that'll hold on to the spot. Look back at that pass.
Yeah, I've been extremely surprised with the pace of the 2nd run from Adam Cabot. I expected him to run up front, obviously, with fantastic back at Mid-Ohio and some other places. And usually a guy you expect to see up front, he's definitely struggled for the last 15 laps or so.
In the replay there, Turner keeping Cabot really tight to the apex. Pretty much was able to get him that spot out of turn 2. They come down the back straightaway, still going to hold on to it, racing off into turn 9. For Martin Sproul, if you got Conor Horn behind you, what do you do in this situation?
Well, I think you race him hard. I mean, you had a rough first start of the race, and I understand the respect that these guys all have for Conor Horn and his abilities, but Martin Sproul's not in the chase. He doesn't care about points, and he wants to finish on the podium and get to talk to us after this one. So I think he's going to maybe block a little bit, block hard, and obviously Conor's got great pace right now, but I don't think this is a position that Martin Sproul can just give up like maybe some of these other points guys would.
You can see Conor still looming in the background, not quite able to get alongside by turn 1, but closing up quite a bit in the braking zone. That Jack Daniels number 3, all in black. Looking pretty intimidating in behind him. We'll see here with Sproul getting a little bit loose. Conor going to throw it up the inside here.
Same move that Conor made on Adam Cabot, just getting a little bit better traction there for turn 3 and cutting himself to the inside and making an easy pass.
Conor Horn up inside the top 3, and honestly, considering the rate he was going at earlier in the race, I never thought we would see him up here. But slowly but surely found his way inside the top 3.
Yeah, and with 10 laps to spare, we should just stop ever doubting this dude, let him do his thing.
He's kind of earned the nickname the Magic Man after what he did at Auto Club. Managed to make 2 tires work when we thought that he was insane. He managed to make that work and was able to get the win. Whoa, a little bit sideways there, but
you guys call him the Magic Man, and in the B Open and C Open circles. Whenever we see him in A fixed or whatever, we just call him that guy we don't like because he's fast.
Yeah, and again, Conor Horn, 8 wins to his name this season, current points leader. Still gonna retain that lead by quite a bit, much to AJ Stravado's dismay, considering he's the driver trying to chase him down. But also, I just want to take a moment to talk about AJ too, and it's been a really, really solid race for him, all things considered, running in second place by a solid margin. I never thought I would see him, after the last 2 seasons he had in this league, to see him up in second place, fighting for the championship, and especially with 3 wins to his name. He's had some atrocious luck over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, I talked to him earlier this afternoon, and he was really excited, really proud of this season as a whole. I mean, obviously he wanted to compete for a championship with Conor, but he talked about, you know, the way he started the season with that dramatic win at Daytona when basically every other car in the field was damaged with Yusuf Ghali, that good fight there, and then obviously a couple more wins. He was just happy that he had a great season, and reminding people that he can really drive race cars, because I know he's had a rough time struggling with it.
And alongside those 3 wins, he had 3 poles, a third of which he picked up last week. So still continuing at a really solid pace, and hope to see him do well at Phoenix to round out the season. I hope he continues the momentum up next season, because next season Conor Horn's not going to be allowed back in the lead because he's too fast and his iRating is too high. The funny thing too is that his iRating was just low enough for them to allow him to race the season, and I'm pretty sure all the Ammons regret that, because again, 8 wins to his season, 8 wins to his name this season. It's safe to say he's been dominating.
Yeah, obviously we saw in the past there we had the iRating rule come into play with Alec Martinez previously, and obviously those guys, he and Alec are both, or he and Conor, sorry, are both fantastic race car drivers, competent for wins any track they visit. But I think the iRating is a good mark, but it's not entirely accurate. You know, we have people like myself who, if I drove the Cup car, I'd have 300 iRating, but definitely the right call to have something in place there for guys like this that are just so fast everything.
Yeah, and it makes it a lot more competitive for these guys. The funny thing actually is, because we're on a road course, it's actually showing everyone's road iRating. And this actually paints the picture pretty well. So the highest iRating out of the road side of things for these drivers, guess who has the highest?
Let's see, I'm going to take a stab and go with Adam Cabot.
Nope.
The Conor Horn.
Nope. Not Conor Horn.
I don't know. I guess I don't really think of it as fast as big road racers.
It is Bryce Calusa with 3,200.
Oh, well, there you go. We don't talk about road iRating when I show up usually, so people get upset about that. But I guess that makes sense. He's putting it on today.
Yeah, and he is really showing why he has that much iRating. Clearly, he's been going at a nice, solid pace. Not has coincidentally been the fastest too, but also been the most consistent in about 7 laps time as he comes across the line. To be able to walk away home with the win as long as he doesn't make any more mistakes, which he's done a fantastic job of mitigating earlier throughout the race. And also one thing I want to point out too for Conor Horn, his iRating is actually surprisingly low. It's only 1,490 for Conor.
Yeah, of course we talk about a lot of these guys don't run regular road series, but that kind of proves that the iRating system is somewhat misleading. I mean, we saw Watkins Glen, Yusuf Ghali one. He just recently got over 11,000 or 1,100. The next car I think was me, and I'm at 5,300. So it really depends on the car, the track, and what you do with your time on the official races. But obviously these guys are all competent. They're running up towards the front in road racing, even if the iRatings don't tell that story.
Yeah, and I'm surprised too that Conor doesn't do more road racing, because he loves playing the F1 games. And granted, they are, you know, not entirely sim racing games, but decent titles. I'm surprised he hasn't really picked up on the road side of things, but I guess never really felt like doing it on iRacing. Especially, you can imagine him not wanting to deal with rookies. No one wants to deal with that.
Yeah, I would like to see a stock car road racing series that visited, you know, all the different road courses that they have, because I know personally I don't really road race anything like a cup car, so I can understand where if you ran a lot of A fixed and wanted to stick in certainly NASCAR equipment. Obviously the Xfinity series is going to Road America this coming week, but I could see where he wouldn't have a lot of fun in driving something like a Volkswagen Jetta or something like that.
We did a race with the Jetta, and one of the drivers, who's also the league admin, he just got so sick of driving it after I think 10 minutes. He came up in the booth and just you know, taking I'm trying to think of a PG way to phrase this. taking a poop all over the car. That's the PG way of saying that, because he just hated driving the thing, and it was so weird because when we heard them taking the green, I couldn't even hear the engine sound from them because they're a diesel engine. It was so quiet.
Yeah, as someone that's driven the Pontiac lifelong, there's Alex Bell's going to let Martin and Bailey go through here. As someone that's driven the Pontiac for over 5 years, I've raced against the Jetta and driven it quite a bit. It's just one of those cars where if you like road racing, that'll make you hate road racing. So.
Absolutely, and I'm sure, honestly, after today, I think quite a few of these guys might hate road racing a little bit more, considering what they had to deal with. Another weather check, which we haven't done in a while, 114 degrees, and I think we started the race off with 105, so this race has gone up almost 10 degrees in temp, which really means a lot once you start to get up into the upper echelons. And fun, I'm curious, Justin, what's the highest temperature that you've seen on track?
Ever?
Yes, in iRacing.
Oh man, we had a late model race. The official late model race, a series a couple of seasons ago, went to USA in the middle of the day in like May or whatever it was. And one of the races I was in, the track temp was 130, and I almost just signed out and left right then. It gets wild sometimes, especially when the sun beats down. Obviously, in the Midwest here, being in Indianapolis, it'll get pretty toasty. But just speaking of the weather, we talked about the guys that were trying the two-stop strategy, which eventually was just pieces of potatoes. He's kind of settled into 8th place. He's kind of out of sight of Clifton Cockrell. He's got Sturgill behind him, but he's kind of just hanging out. Obviously, the two-stopper didn't work to put him up in the top 5, but he's still making laps. He's still surviving. Yeah,
he's sitting in 8th place. Can't really go much more than that because the next driver ahead of him is Clifton Cockrell, 37 seconds up the road. And there's Clifton. There's an idea of where they are on the track difference-wise. So, God is looking to stay solidly in 8th place. So it'll be a decent run for the 50. But yeah, going back to the track temp thing, this I would hope was going to blow your mind. I've seen a track temp higher than that. I've seen it was a fuel race at Charlotte. It was 155 degrees on the track.
Did they go around in like 3rd gear, or what did they do?
No, they somehow managed to drive it. It was really loose, but they were able to hold on to it surprisingly enough. But you can definitely tell it was really hot. They were having to go a little bit slower, not too terribly off the pace, nothing too major, but it was definitely an interesting race to watch. And it was just bizarre seeing the track get that hot.
It sounds just entirely miserable. The only, I guess, benefit to that would be that, you know, on an oval, basically, you're only having to save the car one way. 155 on a track like this with brake zones and
yeah,
first gear launches would just be miserable. That would be a long hour and a half for these guys.
The outer road course, that just sounds like absolute misery to deal with. Yeah, at least on the oval, it'll be I guess in some ways a little bit fun because you get to manage the cars just saying only one direction, but it would also just be really tiring on a road course too, just having to constantly deal with the cars sliding out. And that's pretty much what these guys have had to deal with for the most part. Some guys have been better at it than others.
Yeah, I think after a race like tonight with the hotter track temp and how hard these guys have had to work, especially some guys like Conor Horn having passed so many cars, we might need an official nap time sponsored by SimTV.
Or Conor Horn, actually, here's the interesting thing. He actually is catching up to AJ Stravato. I don't think he'll get there in time, but he has been closing in. Taking a look at the lap times for Conor Horn last lap through, 132.4 for AJ Stravato was a 133 flat.
Yeah, so he's going to need a couple more tenths of a second. I almost wonder if he's going to have a little sympathy for the night he's had and had to pass so many cars if he'll catch the 33 and just kind of let him have it and be like, yeah, it could have been a big point tonight. I don't want to impede my will too much.
Yeah, we'll see here. There you can see that black car in the distance. There's Conor Horn. He's closed in quite a bit, so this battle for second might not be over. In fact, in the time we were just talking about him, he made up another half a second. So Conor's starting to show his true pace here in the closing laps. Trying to chase down his teammate for second place, but man, no one's chasing down Bryce Cluse up ahead. About to gap back out from around 6 seconds once pit stops finished and cycled out. And now almost 18 seconds.
Yeah, he's just had a nice, easy evening. Only really one car in front of him. That's a 90 of Michael Sturgill, who I'm sure will just get out of his way. But he's only got about 25 or 30 more corners here, and he'll have a nice, easy victory. And I'm sure he'll probably be only have plenty of breath left.
Absolutely. Whoa. Sturgill cuts across him to try to pull off the racing line. There's Cluse going to go on by and has all the time in the world to play around with. For Strato, not too much, because Conor Horn still looming down on him. Lost a little bit of time there, so maybe Conor's showing some mercy to his teammate.
It's so hard to keep up that pace, even if you're faster than the guy. You know, obviously keeping the tires on it and, you know, staying in attack mode after, you know, basically an hour and 15 minutes of race time already. It's so hard to just stay focused and make time and continue to cut the gap that he had, especially when he had to get a couple more tenths per lap than when he was getting a little bit ago.
See for Conor Horn, you can hear how little these guys are getting off the throttle. I also want to stay on board with him as we head into the Asses on the Back part of the infield road course. Just listening to the throttle application for him. Very light applications of the throttle.
Yeah, so he's one of the guys that's staying in second gear through those slower corners. Like I said, it'd be, you know, something that you could just kind of float through there and be easy on the throttle, or you could try to punch it and slide all over the place in first gear.
The two schools of thought for that. I'm sure one's definitely better than the other, at least for the tires. And we saw some carnage in the earlier laps with that, but not too much besides that, other than really single car spins. Hasn't really been a whole lot of incidents except really on lap 1. The rest of the race has been pretty clean.
Yeah, the only real contact we've seen here in the last handful of laps, certainly after the pit stop, was that big double slide from Martin Sproul, and I believe it was Adam Cabot.
Speaking of which, Adam Cabot's dropped back to 16, get a little bit sideways out of the final turn. From him started in 4th, back into 6th, so decent day for Cabot. Probably be hoping for better for Sproul. Started on pole, has drifted back to 4th, but again, still looking a lot better in form compared to where he was running earlier.
Yeah, and for the most part, everybody will be happy with this run. Obviously, Bryce is going to be thrilled to win the race. Stravado's going to take a solid point today, even though Conor Horn's going to finish 3rd. But the amount of cars that Conor's passed, I think he's going to be okay with that. And, you know, good runs for Sproul after his early troubles. And Turner and Cabot and Cockrell have all been solid throughout the night.
Kind of looking through the rest of the field, most of the battles have kind of died or settled out here as we're approaching the white flag for Kalusa. He's coming out of the final corner. Going to see the fight he's been waiting to see for a while. Obviously not going to be as good as the next one, but white flag in the air for Bryce Kalusa.
So I think we should have sent him a PM a little bit ago and told him he has to run this last lap in second gear only and see what happens.
And see if his 18-second gap fall. Honestly, I think even then, though, it'd still be more than enough time for him to make it back. Just a really solid drive from the 20 machine. Was really close at getting a win at Mosport a few weeks back. Wasn't able to get it done as he got beaten by Conor Horn, but Conor Horn in behind him this week, and he's been able to sit up front here and pretty much dominate from the get-go.
Yeah, no scratches on this car, no mistakes that we've seen. I think, you know, once he got the lead and got a little bit of a gap and he looked down the standing and saw Conor Horn in 11th, he probably felt like he kind of had this one in the bag as long as he ran a smart race, and he's definitely done that.
Working on the back stretch now through the final few corners. Just has to make it through, as I've got all the time in the world to make it through here without any incident. He hasn't made, from what we've seen, a single mistake all night. I would say pretty much that alone has single-handedly given them this victory here. He's just got to make it around a few more turns. You can see the checkered flag in hand for Bryce Kalusa. He's looking really strong here. And out of oval turn 1, he will go in and will come out. As he comes out and across the yard of bricks is going to be Bryce Kalusa that will win here at the Indianapolis Road Course, his first win of the season. Solid job for the 20, back in behind. Oh, one more lap, I'm sure is what Conor Horn would be saying, as it looks like Servato is just going to finish ahead of the 3 for Servato. He'll gain one single point towards Conor Horn. Not exactly what he needed, but still something nonetheless. Finished in second place. Conor Horn going to round out your podium. Martin Sproul going to finish in 4th after a solid run. Bailey Turner in 5th. A little bit further back from these guys in 6th place. Cam, he's going to come in a lonely 6th place for him. And Clifton Cockrell, too. We saw him have a really strong run inside the top 5. He's kind of fallen out back to 7th. That'll tie his best finish of the season at Martinsville for him. Casey Lacadas with the two-tire stop as the only driver remaining in the field to carry that strategy on will cycle out to 8th Michael Sturgill way back in 9th. Much further on back than that is actually Sturgill and Bell are a lap down. Bell will come in 10th as he's gonna just go flying over the curves, and looks like everyone's happy to be done with the road course.
I'd like to report several deaths in turn 1, please.
Yeah, those guys just absolutely went ballistic, but one guy still in the car looking clean, even after the race is over. Bryce Calusa, what a solid job.
Yeah, perhaps the most important, or the most impressive part of this run, Bryce Calusa, 0 incident points, so he didn't even make one little mistake, slide through a corner or anything, so just a flawless night once he got the lead. Yeah,
I'm sure he's kind of going to be a little bit disappointed in the fact that there's not a bonus point for that, but that's just an impressive stat nonetheless. He's going to, gonna hit the wall. I guess that's what he gets for trying to burn out over the bricks.
Yeah, they fine you for that in real life, so don't run him over there, bud.
Oh, do they actually?
No, but they should.
I was actually going to be surprised. I didn't know they do that. I know fans would absolutely hate you for doing it.
Oh yeah, David Land would have a field day to come and find you.
Yep, and Calusa hitting the wall. It was very tight on that front stretch, but this is still burning them down nonetheless. And with that, he's gonna call it a race as he pulls off the track. I think with that, we'll quickly cut to break here. We'll grab some drivers to interview. Don't go anywhere. We'll be talking to Bryce Calusa, Conor Horn, and more. Alright, we're back live here with, so unfortunately that I had on the screen, Martin Sproul race winner. Unfortunately, Martin, you weren't the race winner, but you finished in 4th place. It was a pretty solid run for you, especially after what was those first laps, which were pretty hectic for you.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened, but like the balance changed. I started wheel hopping, so I changed my brake bias and fixed it, but yeah, it was pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So, unless it was just a brake bias, so what were you able to do to the car to kind of, we saw it was really hot and getting hotter as the run was going on. So, what were you able to do to kind of mitigate that? And we saw the car. You drive a lot more stable in the later part of the race.
Yeah, after it wheel hopped and I slid it for so long, it just heated the rear tires up, and it was just super hard to get them back to where they were good, and I just dropped back.
Well, Martin, really solid finish for you inside the top 5. We'll say best of luck to you next week for the final round of the season at Phoenix.
Thank you, guys. Congrats to my teammate, Bryce.
Yeah, definitely we'll be talking to him in a little bit as well. Thanks for talking to us, Martin.
Thank you, guys.
All right, and with that, going to none other than Conor Horn. Conor, we're not talking to you on the top step of the podium, but talking to you in 3rd. And honestly, after the way you were running earlier in the race, I'm surprised to honestly see you as high as you're running. I really got to ask, because me and Justin were both really confused. What was your strategy for the race?
Some of the road course drivers up there, I mean, sometimes on the starts you don't know what to expect. I felt like with a couple of the guys who started up front, I was a bit in a storm. So I started in the back just to relax, and I'd make my way up as it would go, and then I was trying to adjust my seat down the front stretch coming to lap 2, and I went all the way back and couldn't reach the pedals, so I had to readjust myself. And when I got into turn 1, I messed up. I hit the curb and I spun myself out. So pretty much every chance of winning went out the window. I just had to salvage what I could. A lot of people were going off course. They couldn't handle their car a lot. And I didn't know where the fuel was. I know I made it to 22. I was like, I can make it easy on one stop. I thought it was going to be 2 stops, but it wasn't. And yeah, and then on that first run before I came into my pit stop, I felt my shifter drop because I used like a H pattern. I used an H pattern, and I felt it drop. I was like, did it just break? It went into neutral for a second, but luckily it just did. Like the stand it was on fell, and it still worked. So my race wasn't over there. Then the second run was really fun, driving through a couple of those guys. Almost wrecked with Clifton off the pit road. Cabot was really falling. Bailey and Sprout was really fast, and Bailey was also closing. We were closing on Cabot really fast. I think Sprout and Cabot got into it, which really stacked us up. I went by Bailey. He didn't give me room out of the final turn. That was scary, but we made it work. It was good racing, and was able to get by Sprout and Cabot. And then I ran out of fuel coming out of the final turn. I think one more lap with the fuel, and I might have been able to get AJ, but I spun myself and I got third, so I'm happy.
Yeah, so with that, so obviously, I mean, pretty much your points lead's gonna maintain. I think you lost maybe a point to AJ Cervello after finishing directly in behind him. But what's your game plan going into next week at Phoenix?
Definitely gonna qualify for that one. I think it's one of my better tracks, so I just have to. If I stay out of trouble, I think I'm in a great spot. So just not driving like an idiot, and hopefully I'll be the champion.
Yeah, we'll definitely see, Connor, how you perform next week at Phoenix. It's all looking in your favor, but we'll see you if you can definitely seal the deal.
Yep, hope to see you next week.
And with that, going to talk to Connor's teammate, AJ Cervello, and also championship competitor. AJ, I mean, you pretty much did everything you could do to try to make up as many points, and I think for the most part it was looking good earlier on, with Connor being all the way back in the order, but it ended up finishing right on your tailpipe. So walk us through how your day went.
Yeah, that was fun. Bryce was obviously the fastest car. I thought we had decent speed, but first couple of laps, I'd say 5-10 laps, I was just behind the 77 and the 24, who were kind of roadblocks. I got punted out of the way by Bailey, but we managed to get by. And then after our first pit stop, I was actually a little short on fuel, so that entire second run, I was just having the short shift and be in higher gears than I wanted to be, so it didn't make up enough time. But we did what we needed to do. We finished second. I'm proud of how we've been running all season. It's just Connor's good, man. Got to give him credit when credit's due. And there's only so much ground I can make up when we had 16, 20 cars show up. I can't make up ground like that within 2 races, but we had a lot of fun. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's looking pretty tough for you to try to get the championship at this point going into next week. But do you still have your eyes on the prize for that, or are you kind of throwing up the white flag early?
Nah, man, never give up until we cross the checkered flag next week. I'm going to definitely try it next week. It's going to be really hard. Connor's fast. He's been fast all season. But, regardless of what happens, I'm proud of our teammates, proud of Connor, proud of Jeff, and the way Brennan's also been running this season. And just hope to close it out strong. And, who knows what can happen.
Yeah, and definitely has been a great run for you, AJ, and we'll see you run next week. And also really like to hear that you're still not giving up. Great to hear, and we'll see you how you perform next week at Phoenix.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you.
And moving on, last but not least, to Bryce Klusser, our winner. And Bryce, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is your first win in, at least this season. I'm not sure if it's your first win in the league, but still a really good run. Actually, scratch, not even a good run. That was a fantastic run. The class of the field for the entirety of the 45-lap race.
Yes, sir, Finney. That is actually my first win in ORL so far in my 2 seasons. So I am extremely happy and satisfied, to say the least. And I happen to get it on, I've run road courses because I'd say that's my specialty as opposed to ovals. But super happy about that.
Yeah, we were talking about, we were looking through the iRatings because I can see the iRatings for everyone's road iRating, and you obviously have the highest. But I'm sure that definitely played into effect. You know, you seem to have quite a bit of experience on the road course. Did really well at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. But just kind of, I'm really curious of what you were able to do, because you pulled 20-second gaps on both runs by the end. I think overall you probably would have pulled almost 40 seconds on the guys in behind. So. What were you doing that you felt maybe you were doing different than your other competitors?
Yeah, so like you said, I have a lot of road course experience, and I think that plays a lot into it. But also, driving the stock cars is completely different from driving like a GT3 car or GTE car. You have to be super consistent and smooth with the braking and the acceleration, and that's just what I was trying to do. At the beginning of the race, actually in practice, I wasn't feeling great about it. I think I came out like 6th fastest, but on road courses in these cars, hot laps aren't everything. It's really about tire conservation and consistency. So once I got past Martin and Jeff on their mishaps, it was just my race to lose. So I just kept as smooth as possible, and I actually stayed out 1 lap later than I believe the rest of the field entirely. On fuel, I was really making sure I made it on 1 stop. And after that, that's all she wrote.
Definitely was all she wrote. You went out there and dominated. We didn't really get a whole lot of screen time for you because you were just so far out ahead of everyone else. But Bryce, great win for you. Fantastic job this season on the road courses, and looking to see you not only how you perform next week, but also hopefully next season.
Thank you, sir. Hopefully it carries me into next season.
All right, and with that, that is going to wrap up our interviews for this race. But Justin, well, I guess any final notes from you or any final comments?
Yeah, obviously, we learned in the interviews that Conor Horn is really short and can't reach the pedals. But other than that, it was a great race for a lot of guys. It was unfortunate, obviously, that we only had like 13 or 14 cars at the finish. But obviously, just a masterclass of a drive from Bryce Calusa and some great passing up in the top 5 and the other parts of the field. And I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, it was really fun to just see these guys constantly wheel this car around at really hot temperature. Just actually curious to see. It's still 117 at the end of the race, so it didn't really get much hotter than that, but still hot nonetheless, and was definitely a challenge for these drivers here in the penultimate round of the season. Well, as I was saying, penultimate round of the season. We'll finish this championship up next week when we head to ISM Raceway at Phoenix for the championship deciding race. But for now, my name is Finney DeCuna with Justin Krasneski, signing off from SimTV. Thank you for watching.